Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another Saturday podcast. Myself, Samson Folk, joined by Louis Zatzman. It is, of course, the Bald Don't Lie episode. Twice a month, here to talk about and dive deep into what the Raptors are doing. Obviously, we discussed a little bit, a lot of the philosophy around trade deadline habits during the trade deadline live podcast that we did. And now we're here to discuss something that is still hypothetical in some sense, but a little bit more grounded in reality. How to loose Brandon Ingram, Scottie Barnes, the two stars for the rest of the season, how players can help around them, and just how the Raptors will battle against a Cleveland Cavaliers team that has the third easiest schedule the rest of the way and a newly minted James Harden, how the Raptors will keep the 76ers at bay, how they work through the rest of the season with Poeltl, who is questionable for Sunday, potentially coming back soon, what all of this means. Lewis, how you doing? How you feeling?
I'm doing wonderful. I thought of a good name for the crossover episode when Trey and I are both on with you. Bald, don't pull.
Okay. That's funny. Ball don't pull. ND in chat says hello. Devin says, add attention. Glad to see you both here. Lewis, the first thing I'll say is I did this big deep dive into Brandon Ingram where I was like, I got to figure it out, man. I got to look at all these potential assists. Why does the team shoot worse when he passes it? Are they getting worse shots? Is he passing the guys out of rhythm? Or is he giving them grenades? The answer, I thought, was decidedly no. They're just missing shots from probably the best, let's say, creator on the team. He is now 22.2 points, 3.7 assists, 2.5 turnovers, 5.9 rebounds on 47, 37, and 84 splits. The big thing is that Brandon Ingram, as you've mentioned in the past, contested rebound percentage is big time, career high block percentage. He's helped in the margins, but we want to plan for how the Raptors can get him more scoring, more creating, and helping out and pulling this Raptors offense out of the doldrums. What is your first sniff, your cursory glance telling you about all this?
Yeah, I think the Raptors have found a baseline. They haven't found their top end yet. There's ways to improve everyone. I think we're going to talk about that for a number of guys. Ingram, obviously, as a creator. Scottie as well. I think his role definition has helped him. More of it would help. Emmanuel the same. I think a lot of those conversations are actually the same conversation. And that's the plan today, is to talk about, what the rest of the season will look like, how to optimize it. And I think the way the Raptors are such a fragile ecosystem means that optimizing one should mean optimizing all.
Okay, so when you say role optimization, before we get into the film, and audio listeners, I will do my best to describe the film or appraise you of what is important. Video viewers, obviously, you love the film aspect. It's really what makes this whole thing go. The Raptors show, Blake can't do film live on the air, brother. You can't compete with us. So what is this role definition you're looking for? Like what would you like to be realized, at least in the short term, and then effectively in the long term?
Turns out Scottie Barnes is just a power forward. I think all of this idea of he's a point guard, actually not really at all. Small forward even, I think some of the skill sets that he is missing are exacerbated more by being like a wingier guy. He's a forward. Like he is a big. His skills are best when he is playing in that position. And I think that opens up more creation touches for Ingram. He can improve a lot there, which we're going to get into. And that opens up more sort of scurrying around into catch and shoot shots for Quickly. We saw that against the Bulls. He got up 11 or 12 threes. One was foot on the line from the corner, would have been even more. He missed, but that was one of my favorite games from Quickly on the year where he was missing shots.
Yeah.
Like, it's very rare where Quickly can really win his minutes, positively impact a game, and miss his shots. And I think positions like that, game or role definition like that, where he really is hunting shots, makes it so that he's less reliant on the makes, funnily enough. Yeah. So I think they all lock in as different pieces of the same whole when one definition sort of cascades to the other.
So the quickly thing is he has among the NBA some of the highest looks, or how should I frame this? He is ranks quite high in terms of wide open 3-point attempts. He gets a lot of great looks. I don't even think quickly needs much more role definition. I think maybe him leaning into it a little bit harder. Like I am going to be a guy who I catch and shoot.
Yeah.
Make it work. I wield my gravity when I'm off ball. That would be beneficial to everybody. But also on top of that, it's just shot making. If it comes around, suddenly everything looks better. That also extends to some of what we'll talk with Brandon Ingram. If guys hit more of his passes, then some of the on-offs look better, then some of the assists look better. And, we don't have this weird thing where the Raptors just aren't able to hit. Before we get into actually talking about, the best players, Bazooka says resting Poeltl till after the All-Star break is the best way to go. Don't rush him. Quickly, what are your thoughts on the Poeltl situation? Would you rest him? Do you think questionable is just a bit of a tease? Where do you sit on that?
I don't think he helps the team unless he's himself. The way that he was playing before the injury was, outside of a few moments, actively detrimental to the on-court product. And there's just no benefit. It's not like he needs development. And when he is playing like that, especially defensively, not able to really get to his shots offensively, it's not like he fosters development for those around him. And so it's really just, can he move like himself? If so, he should play. If not, he should sit.
Yeah. To bolster that, the Raptors are worse on defense and offense with him on the floor. That is a little bit of an absurdity, I think, because not only does he fill a major need in terms of size and rebounding on both sides of the floor. On defense, obviously, forcing misses, providing size is meaningful, and the turnover differential, the possession differential on both ends of the floor, but also in that, Colin Murray-Boyles, I think, has done an exemplary job of stepping in and kind of like doing his best impression of what a big man does. But you can tell the roll gravity, the finishing inside. The Raptors are really missing that target man down low. And Jakob Poeltl, the fact that the Raptors offense isn't better with him on the floor is like, so what has this guy been doing? What has that looked like? I agree with Bazooka. I agree with you. Unless he's fully ready, there's no more facade of the trade deadline. Like, let's get him out there and get a 19-point, 12 rebound performance to massage teams away from thinking he's, cooked or whatever. Just maybe bring him back after the All-Star break. I mean, we can harken back to early December where Darko was like, he just needs to, if he got 2 weeks off, he'd be perfect. Well, we're getting a month and some change. Why not give him a little bit more, see if he can get it better? Okay, so the first thing I want to look at is Brandon Ingram. ND brings this up, says, I'm sure you're going to talk about this, but Scottie and BI being only a +1 in their 1,100 minutes together is #scary. Yes, it is okay if you have a team that's truncated like this. Let's say if you have two young stars who haven't completely figured it out yet, but both Brandon and Scottie are quite, I would say, they have their foothold in the league at this point in time. They're supposed to win minutes together. There are reasons to believe they should be complementary, especially since I think Scottie is a very complementary player himself, and Brandon fills such a need on this team. Why isn't this duo just bludgeoning teams, making it work? At first blush, Louis, why do you think this is?
Well, I think the Raptors have built their team to win minutes during those sort of transitional lineups.
Mm-hmm.
And so on one hand, they just don't play the two of them in moments of the game that are meant to be piling up 1 minute. So, I mean, one way to look at that is you can look at team possession by number of starters, and you can look at how teams sort of build it. And the Raptors are at their best, their highest net rating with one starter on the floor, 4.3, seventh best in the league. They're a little positive everywhere, but really, and zero starters, though it's low, and one starter is when they are at their best. So those transitional groups, and that's just, they don't play together then. So that's a small thing. That doesn't explain all of it. But I also think that the two of them haven't quite found ways to multiply their abilities. It's like 2 + 2 = 3.5 rather than 2 + 2 = 5, which is what you'd want.
2 + 2 = 5. Not 4.
No, 4. You know what I mean, right? Where it's you want to be more than the sum
Yes.
of their parts. And 5 is more than the sum of 2
Yeah,
and 2.
okay. I've got you. Okay, so I've pulled up some clips. I think that something that it's when I watch good playoff basketball, when I watch good teams, and the Raptors are a good team, but let's say when I watch great teams, what every great team does is that they combine their 2 best players typically in actions together, because not only is reputation important in how teams guard things, but so is real skill, points per possession, all these types of things. When Pascal Siakam and Scottie Barnes were in close proximity, they actually did bludgeon teams back then. And this is a scoring forward / wing and a Scottie Barnes, who is a multi-purpose star. And Brandon Ingram, I think, has a larger scoring variety bag than Pascal Siakam in terms of live dribble from above the break stuff. So it would behoove the Raptors, I think, to try some stuff above the break with these two. So in the past, we can go look at Pascal and Scottie doing above the break stuff together. Pascal has significant driving gravity. Scottie, when he gets to go one-on-one against bigs down low, is a really strong finisher, whether it is against a big or whether you're able to carve out and draw enough attention to the ball handler, a Pascal or an Ingram, and let Scottie go one-on-one against guards or forwards. Now you'll see this play. This is a pitch play into, a step-up screen. Fred throws to Pascal. Scottie steps up. We're going to see this. He makes the read down low to Scottie. Look at that. Easy dunk. The Raptors still run this play. It's quickly to Ingram on the other side of the floor. Scottie steps up. Ingram draws to the ball. Guess who can run to the rim? Scottie Barnes. This too. They're going to blitz. Ingram gets rid of this ball very quickly. And while Scottie does not dominate over the top of Wells, he is the lone big guy over there left to dominate the paint for his own offensive rebound. Ingram draws a lot of attention. A lot of attention. He has doubled at, especially over the past however many games, an extremely high rate. Scottie Barnes is a guy who is tremendously valuable catching on the move towards the rim with speed, because he is such a dominant finisher there, especially among forwards, especially competing against big men. Why then are we not seeing the Raptors go towards more of these actions for these guys? And you could say, well, they might just switch the action. And if so, then what does Brandon Ingram get as a result of these things? He gets Scottie Barnes, main defender. Is that a DeAndre Ayton in this case, if he actually steps out and flattens it out? Is it a Jock Landale in this case? For audio listeners, that's who's stepping out on Ingram here. What would be the downside of that? And then you get into the same old rigmarole of well, then maybe they'll just double Ingram. Great. Then you are doubling one pass away with Scottie rolling towards the rim. Even if you have to pass and kick it out, Scottie becomes the target man on the inside. If a team is playing quite large and there's still a roaming big at the rim for Scottie to navigate, leave it up to Scottie Barnes to either try and beat that guy at the mountaintop or make a read to a shooter, especially if these two are playing together. Maybe it's a starting lineup. You have either of Emmanuel Quickley or RJ Barrett to choose from. You have to like your odds, especially for the former more than the latter. Why not this? Can you talk me into why this isn't happening as often, Lewis?
Yeah, and it actually gets into the context. Look at the other guys on the court with these Pascal Scottie plays, because they ran Scottie or Pascal at center by and large. One of them has Chris Boucher in the dunker spot. All the rest are spaced floors. They're the only two in the middle of the floor. And if you run the same numbers with this year's team, you actually look at something very similar. With Sandro Mamukelashvili on the floor, with Barnes and Ingram, the Raptors are plus 4.5 in net rating. So not at all plus 1. But in more than double the minutes with Sandro Mamukelashvili off, they have lost their minutes. They have a negative net rating, although very, very small, more like neutral. They need a spaced floor to work, because all those plays with Scottie rolling into place depend on him having momentum. And if you have deep digs, if you have a guy already there with his defender, there is no momentum. And so I think one answer there is to get them either with Barnes playing center. You have had some success there. Quickly shed Dick, Ingram, Barnes are actually plus 40 per 100 possessions in 40 possessions. It's like nothing, but they clearly went on some runs there. Or you can play with Sandro. I think Colin Murray-Boyles, no matter how successful he's been phenomenal in so many ways, isn't the ideal front court mate for that duo.
Yep. And that's what it goes back to media day. The first question I asked to Darko was, hey, you're going to be playing probably Scottie and Brandon together a bunch. CMB is your brand new rookie who you're going to hope to be playing. And he said, you can speak about those three guys. I would like to highlight a Mr. Sandro Mamukelashvili who's going to help make everything work together. And so I don't say this. So basically, as you said, with Jakob Poeltl looming, this takes away a percentage of the time that the Raptors can go to these looks or this action. Well, guess who hasn't played in a month and a half, and there's still not that many actions to look at. And maybe this is the Raptors looking ahead into the future and saying, listen, Jakob's a part of this team. We don't want to run these actions which are not going to be idealized when we have our best players out on the floor. But you are now going into the playoffs, and what happens in the playoffs? Diverse front court matchups, diverse front court lineups. These plays are supposed to be, with your two best players, a bread and butter of sorts. I would like to see the Raptors going to this more often. I don't care if Jakob is back, then run it when Jakob is off the floor and restructure some lineups to try and do this, because what is more important than making your two best players harmonize and work together and using their relative gravity towards one another to benefit either? So when Endy brings up the +1, they are navigating the truncated aspect of the rest of the roster. It's tough to navigate, but there is room for optimism in how they can work together in a spaced floor. And Sandro Mamukelashvili, for at least the rest of this season, is going to be playing 20-plus minutes per game, basically until the Raptors season is over. Think about what that means for Ingram and Scottie, and if you can play some of that together. I think it's worth looking at. And even then, ask those guys to navigate, because we see they run the pick and roll with Scottie in the dunker spot, with Jakob running as a roller. See if you can do something similar when Jakob comes back. Jakob can make laydown passes. Scottie is tremendous navigating the dunker spot. Any thoughts on that, Mr. Zatzman?
Yeah, I did want to talk more about Scottie as a roller.
Okay.
I assume that's its own conversation, though, right?
That is its own conversation. I do, if we can keep it with Ingram first before moving on to that. Okay, so go ahead.
Just before we move past Ingram, then, his downhill passing from like on the move to the rim has, I don't know if I've ever seen a skill just go from like flatlined to boom on the chart, just randomly midway through the year. I forget the game. I think it might have been the one where I wrote about Ingram's paradox. It was against the Knicks. Mm-hmm. So I
he was scoring a bunch. They didn't double him, and he had a lot of room to kind of. We had that one play. Oh God, I might have a clip of it. You look around and talk. I'm actually going to try and find that clip. Honestly,
it was January 28th, so it hasn't been super long, right? We're looking at just over a week, and he made 2 or 3 plays, like laydowns, from the middle of the floor, and we talked multiple times during the year about how his creation, he was drawing a ton of attention in the middle of the floor, was going backwards. And if you're not drawing doubles, and if you're not, scoring at 60% efficiency from the mid-range, then you kind of need to be able to create layups for teammates. And he just wasn't for most of the year. And then all of a sudden, since then, he's been creating 2 or 3 layups a game with his lay down passes, with his sort of up fake passes down low. That's a perfect example, right? Just on the move, driving. That's what it used to look like, right? That pass down to a shooter. But lay downs to cutters or to guys in the dunker, really, really valuable meaty passes. And it's been super present recently. And that is a small thing, but makes him way more viable as an initiator.
Yeah, especially when we think about playing on a team where we're not we're not shooting the ball so well, right? Having a guy like Brandon Ingram who is extremely resilient in turning away the option that the defense is trying to give you. The defense is like, hey, we're helping from here. We want to turn over, yes. We want to force a bad shot, yes, or a bad pass, but we're making the decision that we're fine with leaving this guy. And that's what teams are. Go ahead.
And he can't shoot the shot that he passes to, right? Which means there's kind of just Emmanuel Quickley, who's been shooting terribly off of Ingram passes this year.
Yeah.
Until the last couple games.
Yeah.
It has improved. But it's like just being one of the two shooters means that if you're the guy driving, you've taken out half of the team shooting as on the back end of that drive. Yeah, that's meaningful.
Yep. I also think that there is room for Brandon Ingram to be loosed more as a scorer, not only because he is a decent high point to high point passer, which is because he has really long arms and he connects from the top. He makes a lot of passes with his arms above his head. And that's meaningful for a guy like CMB who is not really a huge target man if he's your roller. It's okay with Scottie. It potentially could be quite strong with Poeltl, who should carve out a bunch of space. But Brandon Ingram, for the past however many games, his number one screening partner has been Colin Murray-Boyles. Now, you and I both love Colin Murray-Boyles. We're huge fans of his game. He is not an ideal screening partner. Why? Because not only, he's a clever player, he is really good at, making decisions about when to pass, when he's working with an advantage going downhill, great kick out stuff. Some of the finishing has been hampered by a clear thumb injury, yes, but he's a bad screener. And what would Brandon Ingram benefit from greatly? Good screening to loose him, because he is a guy who, when he picks up his dribble towards the rim, he can step all the way there. He has not gotten, I think, enough opportunities to challenge rim protectors this year for a healthy version of himself. When he had that big dunk on Kalkbrenner and he was like, this is just me getting started. I'm just getting back into the swing of things with my health. The lane has been so occupied that he's not had a bunch of those opportunities. And if Jakob is there instead of, let's say, a Colin Murray-Boyles, he will be loosed to challenge rim protectors more often. And so these plays, the Raptors are just running an Iverson. You and I were watching this beforehand. If we're trying to set up a play, and we know Brandon Ingram doesn't really want to set a screen, or Brandon doesn't want to just fire from three off of this. He wants to turn this into a pick and roll more or less. So CMB needs to make McDaniels shoot the gap so that he can create the screening angle going up the other side. But he doesn't, which means that McDaniels gets to climb up on Ingram and get all into his face. And then CMB also allows him to climb the screen. And it's just trying to navigate this. And while Brandon does score, that is a commendment on Brandon's part. CMB is mostly floating and trying to be an obstacle, but is not really able to. I'm going to play some of this film, but Louis, what have you made of the rookie and his screencraft and supporting his stars?
You know that scene in The Joker, in Batman, where
Sure.
the Joker is in jail and he's like, what are you going to do with all your strength? That's what I think when I watch Colin trying to plant a screen.
Mm-hmm.
He is so strong, but he just can't get it into the guy, because if you look at his feet, his power is rising away from the play because his feet are 10 feet apart when he's trying to plant something, because his angle isn't there. So he doesn't know where the guy is coming into the screen, and he can't take an angle that actually creates contact. So he's loose, and his power isn't involved in the actual screen. It's all vapid. It's evaporating. And so he may as well not be there.
I think on top of that, too, we are looking at a guy who is able to battle for and dominate space. And you know what you have to be a good screener, generally? Really strong. You do not have to be really tall to be a good screener. CMB is really strong and is not very tall. He satisfies the necessary things. So yes, he is trying to be an obstacle on this play against the Timberwolves. He's trying to get in the way. He's trying to make things happen. But we can also go through the rest of these plays a little bit one by one. And this play here is like Buzelis. This is what's known as, we've been calling it the hot stove. Caitlin, like CMB was doing this all the time in South Carolina. I don't know when they started calling it a hot stove screen, but he's slipping basically with a two-hand push. They're running 77 shallow here. This is a staggered action for audio listeners where Manu Quickly is the lower screener, Brandon Ingram's on ball, and CMB is the top screener. The shallow cut is quickly coming out on the other side to make sure that Jaden Ivey doesn't hang out in the lane and disrupt Ingram's driving angle. Why on earth is CMB hot stoving this screen? Because if he sticks it, look at this gargantuan lane of space that becomes available, right? And you could make the case that, like, well, maybe he's hot stoving because he wants to get down and set another screen on Ivy so that Quickly is the shooter here. He doesn't. He just kind of floats into space and gums up the spacing a little bit. And listen, he's a young guy. Screencraft is tough to get by, but and we do really like him. But this type of stuff, you shouldn't be hot stoving here. Plant the screen and let your star, what it would have been him versus Isaac Okoro with the head of steam. I like my odds. I like my chances. And you can see here, like hot stoving, he pushes and drags and shoves and then puts Gobert in a tough position and then puts a 2-on-1 situation against DiVincenzo here. That's not so bad. But the best screeners are not the ones who like always plant the screen. They're the guys who know when to plant. They're the guys who know when to slip. They're the guys who know when to go flat, when to rescreen. What angles are you trying to create? And CMB, like that, I think is quite good. That is clever screening, right? They try, this is called a screen the screener. They try and, finagle their way through it. So he's like, I'm going to drive both these guys down. Yeah. Creates a wide open three. Brandon pulls it. This is, some fine screenmanship. But I think it's something he has to work on in a lot of different regards. Any other thoughts on what you're seeing here, Lewis?
It'll come. Yeah. That stuff is not really stuff that you... How far down the list does that have to be for focus during, a freshman year at college, right? It's just, this isn't the type of thing that guys have had much of a chance to develop. It's really, really rare for bigs, especially undersized bigs, to have this in the bag when they enter the NBA in day one. It's just, it takes a lot of intentionality. And the Raptors offense, modern offense, requires a ton of intentionality in the NBA. And this is a really good example of it. And when we say, there's mistakes, he's a poor screener, I actually don't think there's much that there's nothing that's unfixable. It's just clearly there's things that need fixing in someone's game, things that need attention. This isn't on the top of the list. They will get to it eventually, and how the team and the player build together. But a lot does need sort of attention at some point.
Yeah, and this play too, you can just this is 77 shallow as well, and CMB sticks it, and then also goes to put the screen on DiVincenzo for Quickly. Like from the second play we see in this package where he screws it up. There is also, you can see tangibly, there are plays where this works better, and he manages to do exactly what the Raptors are intending. That is, I guess, also in this package of plays, I also put Ingram being quite aggressive with his pull-up three-point shooting. When we look at that, you wrote this big piece on how the Raptors need to shoot the ball more going forward. Before we move on to Scottie, Ingram, the last thing, I think, besides getting help from some of these guys to loose him, is being a little bit more like, I'm going to take more three-pointers because this team needs me to. Whether that's fair to him or not, I don't know, but that's basketball. It's a team sport. What do you think of that?
It's how many years of his career have teams been asking Ingram, we got to get more threes, buddy. I think it's been a knock on him, rightly or wrongly. But I doubt he's ever played on a team with this level of need from him. It's funny, as a catch and shoot shooter, he's actually been quite good, 38% on the year, over 4 catch and shoot threes a game. It would be nice if that was at 6, at 7. I don't think what the team needs is a ton of pull-up threes out of primary actions from him. What it does need is guys to get up threes on the catch. Quickly is to get more. Ingram is to get more. Um, those two. I mean, we saw that against the Bulls, right? They combined for what, 20 plus threes attempted? That's what the team needs from them. Mm-hmm. And it's like that doesn't eat into Ingram's diet, right? Catch and shoot, he gets a lot of touches. Not all of those catches actually are plays for him. So he can take those touches that would be really nothing for him into open threes. So it's not like you're taking away your isolations or post-ups to get these shots. So I think there could be meat on the bone for a little bit more catch and shoot three-point shooting, but we are barking up a tree that has seen a number of barks.
Yeah. And so I will say on top of that, as the final note for Ingram, I think that he has played on more talented offensive teams. I would say that on average, the Pelicans over the last however many years had more talented offensive rosters, and they performed that way than perhaps the Raptors this year. But that does not mean that the Raptors can't be better, and that doesn't mean that they can help Ingram become better and play better. He's about 60th percentile in both ISO points per possession when you include passes and pick and roll points per possession when you include passes. It's a little bit worse on post-ups, but they are really relying on his mid-range shot making, that nearly 50% on pull-up twos, establishing a real floor for these plays. But when you're so good at that, as hey, if things go awry, we can fall back on a 50% pull-up two, the points per possession needs to go higher because you should be including passes to open three-point shooters, dump downs, lay downs, things of this nature, which are just giving you like 2 points per possession plus your 0.89 with the pull-up. Like all this kind of stuff is really important. And the Raptors, they do need to be able to support their stars a little bit more. And there's also room for better decision-making from their stars. We will move on to the conversation about Scottie right away and how the Raptors can use him more as a roller. But first, I will say that basketball, Lewis, that daggum thing can be stressful, but your choice of beer, it doesn't have to be. Coors Light delivers mountain cold refreshment. When the mountains turn blue, Lewis, the beer is as cold and refreshing as the Rockies. It's minus 30 with wind chill out there today. Very cold. We all know what it feels like. Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold certified for a smoother finish. Make sure to celebrate responsibly. And of course, you must be of legal drinking age to imbibe to take part. All right, everybody. Scottie Barnes, the roller. How do we get Scottie Barnes north of 20 points per game for the first time in his career? He has added, he's a more skilled player now than he was when he had 19.9 points per game. He's a more efficient player. How do we get him there, Lewis?
I think if he plays as a roller a lot more often, that's all. Like he is so good as a roller. Number for you, pick and roll players. Now I'm only talking about possessions finished in the pick and roll, so shots, free throws, turnovers. Among players to use one possession a game or more, 78 players, he is 10th in points per possession at 1.35 points. That's basically tied with Jalen Duren, Isaiah Hartenstein, Nikola Jokic. Those are the players with whom he shares company as for efficiency. Now, those guys are attempting a lot more shots. Mm-hmm. Duren uses more than twice as many possessions. Hartenstein twice as many. Jokic 3 times as many. But there you go. That's more meat on the bone. You crank up that one possession to 3 to 4. That's points in the bank.
So something to note here, too, is that the conversation we just had about Scottie and Brandon and what that looks like with Scottie rolling, there are also considerations here for once Jakob comes back. There are considerations for if CMB is out on the floor, too. The Raptors do not have this big, sexy, spaced-out lineups that Scottie can just, like... I don't know. If Scottie played on... Like, this is why I don't like the Scottie comps for Draymond Green. It's like, I don't know what the hell it would have looked like if Scottie got to play as the roller with Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. It's almost unthinkable. But I do want to point out that there is some spacing concerns, yes, but that doesn't mean the Raptors should go away from it. I think that there's more room for them to do this. And the big thing is that, like, the reason why Scottie, the what you cited was his points he's scoring, right? That's him as the scorer. It is not as efficient overall with him as the screener because he still has some of those. We talked about CMB not laying down great screens. Scottie does not lay down great screens either. And while it is very worthwhile for him to be a guy, get out of there. Sorry. It's very important for him to be a guy who catches on the move and does this kind of stuff. You want it to be more so the result of, hey, our guard got downhill, made the big step up, and gave the ball to Scottie, rather than, I would say, Scottie hot stoving and just trying to beat everybody downhill that way. It's not exactly the most dependable form of scoring or high volume creation. So he is a guy who struggles as a screener, I would say, but is damn near, as you said, like in the stats, transcendent as a guy after the catch. Like this here is an absurdity. He has the ball. There's no dribble coming. Trace Jackson-Davis, who we know because of my film room, is quite good at matching steps. He has a really high block percentage. Scottie's not going to use anything. He just goes up, muscles him, takes a bump, and finishes with touch at the rim. And he didn't even get to collect his feet in a powerful manner here. He's look at his feet. His one foot is pointed the other side up the court, and he just collects himself, goes and meets the guy at the rim and finishes over top. After the catch, he is so impressive. That's actually a great example of a good hot stove. But he doesn't even set himself up necessarily as a good screener. A guy like Jakob Poeltl is a guy whose footwork and pacing and the way he matches it is unbelievable. Scottie is a guy who I'm just left to wonder, like, if he worked on the softer skills of screening and being a roller, he could be one of the best in the NBA. And also, I would like to see a little bit more with Jamal Shead as well, because it is not very common that a maybe 5'11", 6-foot guard and power forward can run a snug pick and roll, and they can hit the passing window to create a layup. But Jamal Shead he's a pretty clever passer. I would like to see him run more pick and rolls with Scottie as well. It's just something I'd like to see. Scottie is such a talented mover that even on the misses, when it doesn't go in, you see why it would go in and why it could in the future. Like, hey, sure, it didn't go in this time, but why wouldn't it next time? There's just so much to like there. And the Raptors are a team who they keep leaving themselves to the doldrums of like, well, we missed a few too many threes. We didn't do this. It's like, that has to come around in some sense, but you also can try and muck it up, get a big guy going downhill and see if you can beat guys at the mountaintop. And nobody is better equipped on this roster outside of Yak than Scottie is. I'd like to see it personally.
Small undercurrent to the season. The Raptors have been trying to get Manuel Quickley and Scottie Barnes to figure out how to play together for years. In 2024-25 and 2023-24, so over those two seasons, the two of them together had an offensive rating of 115 in 1,300 minutes. This season, with Ingram off, so 350 minutes, it's 119, right? So that's without Ingram. I think there's a clear improvement in their ability to carry offense together. We've seen a number of quickly passes to Scottie on the roll, some lobs, really nice pocket passes. There's been growth there. Mm-hmm. I think it's funny. The path for Scottie to get more points is not really just give him the ball and get out of his way. It's not more isolations. It's not more post ups. It's more shooting around him so he can work with a little shallower digs. Digs still do bother him, even though his drives have been ticking up a lot as the season has gone on. He's up to shooting almost 50% on drives on the year. He was way below that. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much exactly 50% now. It's just a little more space, a little more touch, a few more touches with the ball going towards the rim, and I think, boom, you're over 20. Like he is such a devastating scorer with momentum. It's clear he can't build that momentum whenever he wants with the ball in his hands. So just get guys who can build momentum for him.
Yep. I think the big thing is that if you wanted Scottie to get more assists, you'd put the ball in his hands more often. If you want Scottie to score more, you'd put the ball in his hands a little bit less often, because not only is that the natural verve and proclivity of his game, but I think it also leans into the strengths. Bazooka says, Samson, is this what true cold feels like? Is Saskatchewan this freaking cold? Saskatchewan is this cold, a lot more days of the year than Toronto is, obviously. The story I often tell is that I used to do snow clearing out in, like, you wake up at 3 a.m., you go out and you start clearing like retail spaces of the snow. And there was, I think it was December 23rd or December 24th the one year, and it was minus 50 with the wind chill doing that job. Oh my days, man. That was the coldest thing I ever felt in my life. Also, many people in chat addressing that if Scottie stops shooting 20% from three, he may very well reach 20 points per game. That's a big thing here. The 34% he shot in 2022-23, or was it 2022-23? Or 23-24, yes, when he was a first-time All-Star. That was meaningful, and that is going to help the points per game, the true shooting, and the offense overall, because as we've seen in the film rooms of the past, especially when we were looking at Ingram, in the other episodes, is that they are going to help off of Scottie and get into the lane. If Scottie hits threes at a respectable rate, which I don't know if he will, it helps a bunch. Also, Bubba HHTC says we need to put Scottie and BI and PR together. Watch BI and Zion pick and roll and the PNR from CMB last game. It'll open up our offense so much. Brother, scroll back 15 minutes. You're going to love the film room we were doing. Lewis, is there anything else interesting about this team that you'd like to address or think about with me?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about how to optimize quickly Brandon Scottie. Mm-hmm. When you go down the roster, is there anyone, because our Ingram, we said put the ball in his hands more, initiate possessions, more passing. Is there anyone else who can succeed more if you scale up their initiation? Anyone on this team?
I'm not left thinking so. I really like RJ has not played super well since, actually, he's played poorly since returning from injury. But when he was playing really well and when the offense was humming, it was like 37% from three, which was nice. He's taking a few of the tougher threes on the team, and the Raptors are also giving him like a first look and empty side pick and roll at the start of quarters, and they're asking him to float and play make and score elsewhere. And he's really benefiting a bunch of other players on the roster in that support role. I like that support role. Quickly, I think you can make the case that he should get probably 2, 3, 4 more possessions a game running pick and rolls once Jakob is back, and you want to try and get maybe a pull-up three to go extra a game or something like that. Or maybe even that is something that you don't get a shot out of it, but what you do is you change defensive coverages and you make teams toggle a little bit more often. And then beyond that, you can run more Scottie plus small screens. There could be something there. But Scottie and screening for smalls is also something worthwhile. But, in chat, Bueno Kitty says Mamu. I don't think Mamu should be initiating possessions. I don't agree with that. Sheridan Forbes says Jacoby. I don't agree with that at all. I don't think there's anything there. I think that the Raptors, as is, should be a team that is looking to tweak the status quo to improve the future and for their offensive rating, rather than take possessions a chunk away from somebody and put them elsewhere. I can't think of, like, Jamal has a bunch of possessions and you get what you can there. I can't think of anything. I know you asked the question, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that would be nice if you could find a way to just get someone who can run a little more pick and roll, because when we talk about role definition, so much of it, it's like, let someone create for this guy and he'll be fantastic. Well, I think it would be nice if they had someone pop out who could create for others. I mean, maybe Chucky Hepburn comes back from injury, although I'm not sure if that's going to happen this year. Who knows? Maybe.
I don't think so.
Yeah. Maybe Barrett finds his legs at some point back from injury. Maybe God, maybe AJ Lawson comes in and but like something has gotta. It'd be nice to see something pop up.
Yeah.
out of nowhere.
ND says, I think the biggest thing we miss is Grady being able to come off pin downs and hit mid ranges during transitional lineups, even though they've been good. Yeah, I think that would be a huge boon to the Raptors. Now, the thing is, I think Grady took a lot of guys by, like, and I'm doing this, the hindsight is 2020, but Grady took a lot of guys by surprise with how aggressive he was with the throw ahead, gather, and go up for shots coming off of pin downs last year. And that meant his free throw rate was really high. That lack of, I think, pacing in his game, he plays at one speed. You can see when he's in transition and he has the ball in his hands, he's just like, can I beat the guy to the rim? I'm going to try and go up. You can see that there's no change of pace there. He's really struggling. And obviously, you shoot 31% from three. There's nothing there. But when we look at if you could take Grady's start to last season, hey, brother, if you could take Grady's start to last season and plug in that verve to this team, I think it would benefit them greatly, especially since, like, this is a team that they are playing Grady no matter what. So let's at least get a little bit of offensive utility out of him. His skill set is supposed to be that. It just hasn't been. So but I don't know where else you go. You said AJ Lawson. That sounds insane to me, man. It's just
It's
like,
insane.
Who knows?
I was just looking up and down the rosters. If Grady popped off, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen him just have a terrible season and just like boom, his rookie year, right? If Grady were to just pop off, that changes the texture of this team. Maybe it's a buyout guy. Who knows?
Would it have been Chris Paul for you? Is this like, were you sad
Look,
he didn't join the team?
I would have loved for Chris Paul to have joined the team because I would have written some really cool stuff. That would have been really fun for my job personally. Who knows about the floor, the actual game? Mm-hmm. That's a huge compliment to me. I think you are so handsome, Samson.
So also I'll say this with the Chris Paul thing. Davion Mitchell last year had friction with some of the younger guys on the team because he was a guy with friction, like not hazing in the super negative, but like, you're my rookie, you do this, like, yeah. He moved a certain way that made some of the younger guys bristle. And I think Chris Paul, oh brother, I think some of that same stuff would crop up if he was on this team. As fun as having Chris Paul put on a Raptors jersey would be. I mean, there's some spectacle to that for sure. Mel says the Thomas kid from Brooklyn, microwave scorer, let him come by for a cup of coffee. What do you think of that, Cam Thomas? I think his possessions go nowhere except either the bottom of the net or a rebound, and that is intensely frustrating to play with as a teammate.
I'm on board. I mean, look, I don't think he would be game for this, neither he nor his agent. Yeah. But if you sign him to a minimum deal and say, look, you need to prove that you can play in a system, and if you prove it, you get a huge contract coming up. Not from us. Not from us. But if you can actually just come in off the bench, play within the flow of an offense, and cook, and if he doesn't, it's a minimum contract. You can waive him. There's literally no risk. I don't see, like, the Raptors could use him, in my mind, more than any other team in the league. So I think if you're going to get a situation where a player who can actually play on a winning team can do a little bit of cookery, of isolation scoring, but also needs to prove he can pass the ball, he can play within the flow, he can cut. It is an opportunity where he could really change the conversation around his game. I don't know if he would be up for that.
When you say, well, one, I have a question. Would his minimum contract, I guess they'd pay 35 games of it or something like that, 30 games. Mm-hmm. Would that put them over the tax? Probably not.
Yeah, you probably wait, right, till the signing. You would sign him late, I think.
Yeah, if you could. I know, I get it, man. But also, when I think about how this team is built, Cam Thomas, I don't think he buys in, man. I don't think he's like, oh, I'll come get 20 touches a game. Because again, he's going to
Yeah.
be coming in on a minimum contract. The Raptors are not going to be like, you get to be the guy on the floor when one of RJ is out there. Okay, no, RJ has higher status than you. When Quickly's out there, no, Quickly has higher status. Scotty, Brandon, not a question. Even Jamal Shed, they're like, no, we want to get into some looks and we want
Yeah.
Jamal on ball. Cam Thomas is going to come in and just be like, I'll save the day for grenades. Camden says he had the highest usage in the league last year. I don't believe it,
Oh, I
man.
love that so much.
I don't believe in it. But his skill set, there's clearly value there. But that is for him to figure out. I think not for the Raptors.
You have to admit, though, that if you're going to succeed for this last half year as Cam Thomas, if you're going to play your way into a big contract, a real contract, Toronto offers a chance to do that, perhaps better than anywhere else in the league.
Yeah, it's not bad. Also, who is this in the comments? Red Salute says Haywood Highsmith, who also got waived, would be a better option. I will say this. If the Raptors are out on Grady, they don't have to be. I don't think they are. But if the Raptors are out on Grady, I think that giving all of his minutes to Haywood Highsmith would probably result in more 1 minutes for the Raptors down the stretch. But Haywood, the Raptors probably don't perceive him as having the same level of upside, being a 29-year-old versus 22. But if they were like, let's just win some more minutes, Haywood Highsmith, I think, has real value as a defender. He's a fine enough catch and shoot guy. And it's not like the Raptors are looking to Grady to be like create stuff or anything like that. If the Bulls bought out Sexton, I don't know why Colin Sexton would choose the Raptors, but that would be pretty funky. We talked about trading for him, so Highsmith better D than Grady for real. Yeah, it's not even like Haywood Highsmith, I think, is a good defender, and Grady is so far from it is a chasm between those two guys. And Killer Cat.
Can you imagine Darko being like, no, Haywood, we want you to let your guy go past you. Really?
It's called a peel switch. Yeah. And he's like, no, they would do they'd make me do 800 push-ups in Miami if I did a peel switch. They'd say that was soft. See, that's no good.
They got a paddle that says peel switch on it. They just
none of that. Which is, I think, actually the Miami peel switches sometimes. So we're just being funny. But Killer Cat, who's Nesta, says Isaac Jones, please. I know you hung on to watching him at Summer League. Isaac Jones murdered the Raptors at Summer League.
He
man.
did.
He gave us so much problem. Lewis, anything else before we get out of here? This is a good podcast. I feel happy with where this went.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think they are an above 500 team for the rest of the season? Are you expecting them to fight for fourth, to stay around sixth, to sink down to the play-in?
I'll be surprised if they're in the play-in. Very surprised, actually. Because here's the thing. Whether Jakob, I would sit him till after the All-Star break. He can ramp up during the All-Star break, get some light stuff in, even take a game or two. But that extra time, if it's Jakob, a lot has been made of the hand-wringing in public about his contract. And I totally get it because he signed a contract that I think was too expensive. But for me, I was like, okay, I'm surprised he got this much, but he's a very useful, there's a lot of utility in having this guy on your roster. And there you go. But then immediately he was like, I can't play at all. I don't know what's going on. And when I played, I'm bad. The idea of the Raptors being worse when he's on the floor is kind of nonsensical, given what we know of his game. If he returns in a healthy or even 95% healthy capacity, the Raptors become a much better team. And they become a team that can compete against better teams, against a more diverse set of teams. And that, I think, is really, really important. And I think that the Raptors can be above 500. Maybe it's only slightly so. But the Cavs, I think, are the fourth seed the rest of the way and punching up at 3 and 2. But I think they can compete with Philly for 5. That would be my guess.
Since 2019-20, he has had 85th percentile on-offs or better in every season but one. 2019-20, 90 they were his team was 9 points better per 100 possessions with him on the floor versus off. 8.9 the next year, 92nd percentile. 7 points the next year. And then 22-23 was the 1 year that was neutral. Then 14 points, 10 points. It's like, and then 6 points last year. This is, his teams are better. His teams are way better. And this year, they've been worse on both sides.
Yep.
I think if you add him back, if he comes back, it seems like they will. He's 30 years old. He's not 34. He's 30, just turned 30. It's pretty reasonable to expect they can be a slightly better team. Probably playing at 500 should be baseline expectation. 6th seed, 5th seed, that's probably my expectation. One of those two.
ND asked, can you explain how the guarantees on Yak's contracts work? It's hard to find out. So the guarantees by the last season, I don't know what the guarantee is, but I do know that the bonuses he has set on each season are 1,400 minute bonuses. So that means that if he plays 55 games at roughly 26, 27 minutes per game, he'll probably hit his bonus, which I can't remember what.
That's 900 minutes more.
Yeah, 9. Well, he won't hit it this year, I don't think.
Yeah.
But this applies for every year, and so the benefit of this contract for the Raptors when they made it was that he'll opt into his player option for next season at 19.5. That gives them wiggle room with this current iteration of the team, and then he goes into 27.3, 29.4, 27.3. Particularly the 27.3 and 29.4 is that it can actually go a little bit higher for him. He'll get I think a 5% kicker if he plays 1,400 minutes. So, or yeah, not 5%, a $5 million guarantee. Goes up every season. He plays 1,400 minutes. That's it. Donkey 16. I love sometimes having a chat and having people who are like, I'll go look this up. It's like a flowing sea of information. Really great sometimes. Louis, that's what it is. ND, that's what it is. Do we have any more questions or concerns before we get out of here?
This would be like the first time we never hit a full hour, right?
Would it? So do you feel like you want to do 3 more minutes just as like a...
I'm just saying there's room for questions. If anyone has a question.
Okay, well, we can answer a question. I guess before we get a question in chat, what did Mel says Trace Jackson Davis. Honestly, I hate to offload this, but Trace Jackson Davis, we talked about him a bunch on the last episode. If you are interested in hearing our thoughts, I actually did a film room on him, and Louis and I talked about him. And in terms of nothing has changed since we talked about him on 2 days ago. But Nesta asks, why did Kerr not play Trace Jackson Davis? Well, I think he's not a very complimentary player next to Jimmy Butler, for one. And Draymond Green has to soak up a certain percentage of minutes. And also the big thing is that Quinton Post shoots the ball. And so when the Warriors were playing guys like Jimmy Butler, they're playing guys like Moses Moody, they're playing guys like Jonathan Kuminga, they're playing guys of that ilk. Suddenly you're looking to get your spacing and your shooting from a front court member rather than the wing, which is currently being occupied by not non-shooters necessarily, but guys who aren't looking to work that way. That's my feeling on that. Do you have any feeling on why he stopped playing under Kerr?
Yeah, well, I think he was injured for a while. He is the type of player where he needs to be physically 100%, because for a rolling big, if you don't have that pop, and you're not a shooter, it's easy to lose the edge and not really contribute offensively. And there was a stretch there where he wasn't finishing well, he wasn't rolling well. It seemed like he just didn't have his legs as well. But no, you nailed it. Just the team system didn't make as much sense for him. You don't build your team to complement bit players. You build it to complement the stars, and he wasn't doing that as well as Post.
Okay, this will be the last question, which actually touches on your last sentence. You don't build a team to complement your bit players; you build it to complement your stars. It's the conversation that we had during the live stream, the trade deadline. ND says, "Do you still think getting a stretch big is paramount for Scottie, or can we still get by with an interior big, like a proper stretch slash rim protection big? I felt like Scottie internal passing was so good it could be ignored, but getting his scoring to be up sounds really good as well. I will say." And maybe this is a hot take. Scotty is not good enough on offense to design the offense around his limitations. I do at this point, and keep in mind, I'm the guy who said Scotty before the season could make All NBA. Okay, and everyone called me a dumbass, and I said I thought he was for sure going to make All Star. Okay, I like his game, and my description of his game this season, I think, has been almost exactly on point, except he's shooting like 4% worse from downtown, unfortunately. The thing is, Scotty is not a good enough offensive player to think about like how do we optimize this guy as a creator. I don't think so. I know he's 24, he could improve, but like most guys by 24 have shown some level of that. And I don't think having a stretch big would suddenly turn Scotty into like this dominant initiator. And I do think on top of that, that he's a clever enough passer, a strong enough player at navigating the interior of the court, with his finishing, with his passing, and his short mid-range game, that he can navigate a big who doesn't space traditionally. But far more important than a stretch big to make Scotty, more viable as a roller, I think is an unbelievable on-ball guard. That's what I think. Alexander B, you say, but Scott is the best creator on the team. They have been one of like a bottom third offense every year, all the time. Pascal is not the number one option on Indiana, and it benefited him greatly. And the offense is not built around him. In fact, to make that comparison, the Pacers just traded for an interior big after Pascal said, I love playing with Miles Turner. This is incredible. They said, here's Ivica Zubac. Guess who we're not building around? You. So that's what I think. Scotty, he hasn't shown enough juice offensively to think, like, how do we build this an elite offense around his skill set? That's how I feel.
I think if you had an elite on-ball guard next to Scottie Barnes, you probably are looking at a championship level team, like an elite on-ball guard. If you were to put, Shea or Steph or Halliburton next to Scottie Barnes, that could be the framework of a championship level team.
Yes.
Now, next to those guys, it depends on the player. Right? For what big you could make it work with either a spacer or a non-spacer at center. I do think I'd prefer a spacing center. I think Scottie Barnes would be benefited by playing next to a shooter. Can make it work either way, right? We've seen it work really, really well with Jakob Poeltl in the dunker spot. He's so good at making himself open. It would need to be an excellent non-shooting center. It couldn't just be a bit. Like, you can't punt on the center spot. The Raptors have taught us that. But yeah, I think you could probably make it work either direction.
So I'll just make this point. I know people are bringing up the spacing. I get it. I do. I'll give myself such an easy layup because I'm the guy with the microphone. Scotty used to get compared to Giannis early on. When he was a third-year All-Star, it was a big deal. So the year age 23, Giannis, the year before he gets his spacing big, he averages 27 points per game, 10 rebounds and 5 assists, and 3 stocks. Okay? The year after, he does have an extra 2 points per game added on. He is he more efficient? No, he's actually less efficient. But the team overall is much better. And that's Giannis, who Scotty used to get compared to. There was even rumors of Giannis with a jumper was the comparison that Scotty used to get. Scotty could be better if he had a spacing big, yes. But I don't know of any guy who had Scotty's output offensively who was simply turned into like the leader of a great offense just because he had like a stretch big put beside him. I've never heard of such a thing. And even Giannis, who is good with a stretch big, it does not salvage or turn the Bucks into an elite offense, and never did. Having Drew Holiday out there and Chris Middleton out there helped a bunch, though, because they initiated possessions. That's how I feel about that. I'll let you close out the podcast, brother. It's your world, squirrel.
Sorry, 2:00. Things get busy around here. Okay, this was a delight. Made me very excited for the rest of the year. I love diving into specifics with you because now I know what I'm going to be watching for. I'm going to be looking for how Ingram plays as an initiator, how Scottie rolls. This was, as always, a pleasure, and thank you all so much for joining us.
Oh my God.
Wouldn't be here without...
Donkey brought up the topic you wanted to discuss. Okay, next episode. Lewis wants to rant about this.
I do. I have to. Jonte does have to be really pissed that, like, what, the 2 years after, it's just like fine now for insider trading is cool. Yeah, insider trading is like cool now.
The president of the country did like a crypto rug pull. He was a year early, man.
It's really like when you're in school and, you know, if you get punished for something and then your classmate does it, it's like, well, how come I can't hit? He just hit. And you say it's fine. But instead of another classmate hitting, it's like the teacher. It's like, well, you hit your friend. Like, why can't I hit my friend? That is the world we live in. And Jonte has to be pretty upset about it.
Dude, we're very simpatico. Not only do we look very similar, but if you didn't finish off with saying like that is the world, I was chomping at the bit to be like, that's life. Like, why does this guy get to hit but I can't hit? That is the world.
That low price point, they can hit.
They can hit.
That's the thing about Giannis, though, is he's just one of the many uber wealthy people leveraging that for exceptional wealth. The rest of us can't do that. We don't have the ability to do that. Perhaps we have morality that would not allow us to do that. Who is to say? But we sure can't, and other people can. Yep. There's different rules for different people in the world.
I will say also, K-Man66 or 666, ominous, says, any talk of Curry investing in tech that is used to kill women and children. I'll tell you this much. Curry is not the only one. There are a few NBA players who have invested in companies that do engage in war, surveillance, and things of that nature. And I think that is very important to bring to light. I wish that players wouldn't. But what recourse do we have in this world to hold someone to account?
If you're going to hold investors to account, brother, this ain't the world for you.
And even beyond that is like, even if you do so, we just as a society have lost the ability to hold people to account largely, I think. There are some things that have gotten better, but we have really lost the grip on shame as an impetus for curbing behavior, and even past that, not just shame, but like legislation. We don't have anywhere to go with it.
My family is going to hold me to account. Yes. Unless I turn this camera off.
Okay. All right. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. Make sure to like the podcast before you get out of here. We appreciate you very, very much. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night. From myself and Lewis, have a blessed day and goodbye.